Hi everyone, this is Jessica with Great Minds. I'm glad you could join us today. I'm super excited about the expert call that we have this week. We have Chris Ward with us, who is awesome and amazing in every way possible. He is the go-to guy that I go to for any legal advice or questions that I might have. And today we have him with us to share some of his insight and his knowledge. And I'm really excited to see his presentation. We also will be highlighting a few questions from our Denver Shakers, from our Great Minds members, from people who want to get more in depth with what he's going to be talking about. And so I'm going to pass that along to Chris in just a second. If you haven't heard about Great Minds, it is a Denver-based group in Colorado, and we are all about helping leaders helping leaders. So we like to support each other with our business, personal lives. We like to bring education that's going to help everyone level up to the next thing that's going on in their life so that they can achieve their goals. And today we are going to help you do that. So Chris, I would love to pass along the virtual microphone onto you and tell us all about the legal issues that are important, that I think are important to everyone, both personal and business-wise.
Well, excellent. Thank you very much, Jessica. I appreciate you and the opportunities that Great Minds has given me in the past. We've had we've done the live events together, networking events, and so it's just great to network with some of the Denver Metro's finest. And so I appreciate this opportunity again to share my story and experience in the world of business ownership. And so for those of you that don't know me, I want to share a little bit about my background. First, I grew up in Missouri, but joined the military right out of high school. Took my one-way ticket into the U.S. Army to get out of town, and I spent 11 years in the U.S. Army. I had spent 4 of that overseas, serving in peacekeeping operations, like in South Korea. 2.5 years of that was in Bosnia, spread out between 1997 all the way up until 2005. When NATO handed over responsibility of Bosnia to the European Union. And right at that last year I was in the military, I knew I was going to get out. That was the plan. And I thought that I had an impeccable resume. As I'd mentioned, 4 years of the 11 overseas. I speak 2 other languages, both Russian and Serbian Croatian. I had enough college credit hours for probably 2 PhDs, but kept changing my mind on what degree I was going after. So I do not have a college degree. But however, I just thought that my resume was impeccable. I figured that it would get me into a 6-figure job wherever I'd applied. And as that final year started to die down, nobody was calling back. At that time was when we were making the transition that everybody was submitting their resumes online. And when I wasn't getting a job anywhere and that final year was running up, I had to decide whether I re-enlist in the Army or take a job that I might not necessarily want. And so I decided to go by the way of business ownership. So I looked back and I was like, well, what would I really do if I started my own business? Because at the time I lived in Monterey, California. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the Monterey Bay area, you have to be a millionaire to own property in Monterey, right? Well, now you have to be a millionaire to own property in Denver. So not a lot has changed in that real estate market there. But I looked around and a lot of the successful people that I knew were all business owners, and then everybody else that was working a job was working primarily in hospitality. So I knew I didn't want to work in hospitality. And so I decided to follow a childhood dream of mine, which is actually to start a video production company. So I did that in January of 2007. Homeless Island Pictures is no longer in business. And I also resurrected a defunct jazz record label called Black Hawk Records, almost at the exact same time. And I had no experience in business ownership. So I did what a lot of people did. You go out and you try to find the experts in the various arenas where you need support. We hired right out of the gate, I hired a graphic design artist and web designer to do our logo and build out my website. I know the logo alone was like $250 at the time, which now you can go to Fiverr and get it done for 20 bucks. And then also my website was like $2,000 because we did e-commerce site. And, and this is, again, 2007. So it wasn't, all the software to build your own websites weren't as advanced as they are today. And then, we hired a CPA to manage our books, because I knew nothing about the accounting outside of the class I took in high school, which I did very well in, by the way, but I didn't trust myself enough to run my own books. And then, we hired an office manager to manage our day-to-day account events. And because I was partnering with a recording studio, and as we were building our business, we used the recording studio to run events out of. So we were often working late into the night, setting up tables and chairs and everything. So I was an event coordinator on top of everything else. And we also hired an attorney. So we went out to one of the top small business attorneys in the Monterey County. He charged us a $10,000 retainer, and he was $400 an hour. And I was naive, because I had, outside of the military, I went through the Judge Advocate General's office to get my will done whenever I first went to Korea. That was obligatory. And so that was at no cost. And it was a simple will that we had to get done just because we were being, sent overseas. And so that was my only experience with really ever working with an attorney. And so I was naive. I thought a $10,000 retainer was going to last us for years until we used them the first time. So we had him draft a contract. It was a several page contract for one of our video production clients. And I got an invoice from him afterwards. It was $1,500 off of our $10,000 retainer. And I said, wow, this isn't even going to last us through the summer if I keep using our attorney. So I did what the majority of Americans do. I ended up Google searching legal questions, downloading legal forms, actually writing my own contracts for clients, just praying to God they never ended up on a judge's table. I was asking friends and family and colleagues for legal advice, just so I wouldn't have to use my own attorney. Even though we had him on retainer, I didn't want to chip away at that retainer unless I really needed to. And it was about 8 months into my business that a gentleman came into our office that knew my business partners. And he had said, listen, if I could show you a way to significantly reduce your legal costs, would you give me 15 minutes of your time? And I was like, absolutely. So me and my partners sat down and with this gentleman, and we learned about Legalshield for our business and for ourselves personally. And I was blown away, because I had never heard of anything like this before. And so I'm a very analytical person anyway. So, whenever I enrolled for the plan, I said, well, how much is this actually going to save our company month to month? And that was the thing. It was a subscription basis. It was a low flat month-to-month fee. And I estimated it probably saved us what our attorney would have charged us, well over $2,500 in the very first couple of months using Legalshield. And so I was absolutely blown away. And I turned around and I told the gentleman after using it, I said, this is something that every business owner has to have. Because, I recognize, just like everybody else, is that just like an athlete is one injury away from the end of a career, a business owner is one serious legal situation away from having to close their doors forever. And especially if you're working as a startup, you're already operating on a shoestring budget until you generate, enough revenue to get in the black. And so you still need attorneys, just like the same way, you still need to have, do your accounting and everything else. These are all facets of the business that, necessarily you don't want to do on your own. You're focused on whatever it is you're passionate about in building your business. You don't have time to wear all the other hats, even though I realize most of us do anyway. And so I'd really just like to take you through one of our virtual open houses to share with you a little bit more about who Legalshield is and what our services cover for individuals and families. For those of you that are business owners, I want to let you know we do have additional information I'll send over to you, and this will be really brief, 10 minutes. And then I'd love to open it up for questions and answers immediately following. So you'll bear with me for a second. It says the host has disabled screen sharing.
Oh, hold on.
All right. So I'm going to dive right into it here. So I think that you don't have to be a marketing genius to recognize the fact that the way consumers are accessing products and services has really been turned upside down. Just in the course of even the last decade, you can remember times when we used to go shop at the mall. Well, that's completely changed now. Companies like Amazon, that especially during the quarantine, completely dominated the shopping experience. I mean, everybody was buying everything online, and the majority of that was going through Amazon. And for those of us that maybe Gen X or even the millennials that remember buying cassettes and albums and CDs, saw the music industry change, where all of a sudden we were downloading MP3s. Well, now you can't even download MP3s anymore. People are signing up for streaming services where they can just put together playlists of different songs. And so you don't actually possess any of the albums anymore. You're just paying for a service like Spotify and so on and so forth. So what we've done for the last 47 years is applied the subscription model to the justice system. And I want to let you know that our company, Legalshield, we were actually the pioneer of the legal service plan industry, meaning that prior to 1972, there was no such thing as legal service plans in North America. So when we're out in the marketplace and I'm sharing with people what it is we do, they really don't have a frame of reference. Typically people liken attorneys to either a high, hourly cost or a lofty retainer fee, or some attorneys are providing flat fees right now, which is just a marketing gimmick for an hourly rate. So they'll charge you, $350 flat fee for something that only takes them an hour to do anyway. And so our vision is simple: is to provide equal access to the liberty, equality, opportunity, and justice that every human deserves and expects. And so here's our corporate office in Ada, Oklahoma. As I mentioned, we were established in 1972, and we're currently protecting over 4.4 million lives in all 50 states and all provinces and territories in Canada, as well as now we're in the United Kingdom serving both England and Wales. And the third party notoriety about what we're covering, I mean, just last year alone, I had our very own Colorado Attorney General at one of our large training events on stage edifying what it is that Legalshield's doing in the marketplace, not only to make access to justice even more affordable, but what we're doing for the entrepreneurial community as well. Now, if you were like me, you'd never used an attorney before. A lot of times people say, well, thank God I don't need Legalshield because I don't need an attorney. And I know what they're thinking about. They're thinking about those once in a lifetime legal situations like divorce, bankruptcy, loan modification, DUI, so on and so forth. But think about all the nickel and dime legal situations that you don't necessarily think to call an attorney for because the solution may cost more than the problem itself. So how many times have you ever signed a contract or a document that you did not read or did not fully understand? What about had a landlord-tenant issue? Perhaps you had a security deposit that the landlord didn't want to give back to you. Or perhaps you were the landlord and you had a bad tenant. What about been overcharged or treated unfairly by a friend, a coworker, a business, the government, right? What about received a traffic ticket that you thought was defensible? How many times have you ever been concerned about your identity theft or your children's identity? What about had a real estate transaction? You've purchased a home, you're a host for Airbnb, you have a rental property, or just needed to update your estate planning devices. Colorado is a mandatory probate state, meaning that if you don't have your last will and testament in place, the state of Colorado will make those decisions for you. And it's not just that you've died. Sometimes you just need to identify somebody that if you're hospitalized or incapacitated, who's going to make medical and financial decisions on your behalf. So I want you to imagine if you were an attorney and I came into your office and I wanted you to provide me with a suite of services. However, as opposed to you charging me for some lofty retainer fee, I want you to charge me on a flat month-to-month fee. The first things first is I want to be able to call your office Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I want somebody to answer the phone every time I call. And then I'm going to give you 4 business hours to find an attorney that specializes in a particular area of law to call me back. how much would you as my law firm have to charge me on a monthly subscription basis to give that kind of access to me and my family? We would probably agree it would be hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. I mean, they would have to hire staff just to answer the phones for you, right? Now, legal advice would be incredible if that's all we did. When I get to the price point, you'll be blown away. But sometimes you need a little legal muscle behind it. So if my situation is appropriate by law, I want you to write at least one letter or make one phone call on my behalf on an unlimited number of subject matters. Now, I've used this for as trivial of things as being overcharged for my cell phone plan. Whenever I looked, I'd once purchased a cell phone package. It was $99, unlimited data, texting, the whole 9 yards. But after a while, I noticed on my bank statement, I was paying $150 for that exact same plan. Well, when I looked at my phone bill, there was a line item on there that said extended services, $50, but without any explanation of what that was. So I called them up and they said, well, sir, that's your horoscope, fun facts, and the weather. And so I had to laugh because I said, well, I have unlimited data. I could Google search any of that if I actually wanted it. So I said, take that off my plan. I never ordered it. And they said, well, we can't do that. It's part of your plan. So the options they were giving me was to either continue to pay $50 a month, or if I'd cancel my plan, I'd be facing a $200 early termination fee. So I called up my law firm just to find out what my rights were in that particular situation. They assigned me a consumer law attorney that had me send over a copy of my phone bill. And upon review of that, they said, sir, what they're doing is predatory. What happens is third-party companies get your information and then they siphon money from the consumer through the cell phone plan. They said, you picked up on it because it was $50 a month. They said most consumers never even notice it because it's only $1 or $2. So they decided to write a letter on my behalf and they sent it over. They sent me a copy of that letter. And upon receipt of that, the cell phone provider called me up and they said, Mr. Ward, we apologize. There was a misunderstanding in customer service. We've not only removed that charge, but we've debited you back the last 6 months that you had been charged for those services. And I just thought to myself, I was like, before Legalshield, never would I have thought to call an attorney for a $50 issue. And I can't tell you how many times I see people posting on social media, little nickel and dime things that they've been cheated on that they never think to call an attorney for. They just want to complain to the World Wide Web. Well, outside of that, not only are you going to write phone calls, as my attorney, I will also want you to review contracts and documents up to 15 pages each on an unlimited number of documents. I want you to be available to me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in the event of a legal emergency. And if I get a moving traffic violation, within 4 business hours, I want you to assign me an attorney that will actually call me up to let me know what my rights are in a particular situation. I used this to dispute a police officer pulled me over. I was in Columbine Valley. I was going 20 miles an hour in that nice neighborhood. And the police officer pulled me over saying that I did not come to a complete stop at a stop sign. And I said, absolutely I did. And he goes, no, you didn't. I saw you roll through it. And I said, well, I'm going to dispute this in court. And he laughed at me because he's like, nobody disputes a traffic ticket. It's a fix-it ticket. It's like $175. But that's my $175. So he wrote mandatory appearance in court because I wasn't going to sign it. So I called up the law firm. They assigned me an attorney from the Colorado law firm who agreed with me. It's defensible. So my attorney and me both went to traffic court in Arapahoe County. As soon as we signed in, the clerk took us back into the judge's chambers. We bypassed everybody else in traffic court. And then we sat down with the judge. I didn't say a word. My attorney said, Judge, Mr. Ward is a pillar of the community. He's a military veteran. He hasn't had a ticket for over a decade. And there's no evidence to suggest that he did not come to a complete stop at that stop sign. The judge agreed with him. Throughout the case, I had to pay a mild court fine, and I was free to go. And I was just thinking about all the people in that courtroom that have to sit and wait in alphabetical order while the clerk calls them up to defend their traffic ticket. So that's included as well. Now, we would probably agree, if I were to say, how much would you as my law firm have to charge me for all these services? Again, it would probably be thousands of dollars, which is fine. If I'm a multimillionaire, I'm willing to spend thousands of dollars a month to retain a law firm to protect my millions. I also talked about will preparation. We're going to prepare a comprehensive will for our members in the very first month. So there's no obligation to continue a membership for any period of time. And it's a comprehensive will, which is going to include your healthcare and financial powers of attorney. Now, I'm single. I've never been married. I have no children. But if I ever do get married, have children, or there's a change that I want to make to my will, we'll update that will at no additional charge other than the monthly membership. Now, we can't cover everybody for everything. As I mentioned, those serious, once-in-a-lifetime legal situations. This plan is for when bad things happen to good people, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. You can use it for all kinds of good things. But in the event of what I call did it to myself, that's for bankruptcy, contested adoption, contested divorce, DUIs, any criminal-related matters, including excessive speeding. You're still going to have to retain an attorney, but they take 25% off their standard hourly rate. We also do contingency cases. So as you're driving around, you probably see the big billboards or the RTD trains that are wrapped in attorneys claiming to provide contingency services. So if you're the victim of an auto accident or other personal injury, you can still retain our attorneys will come on in a contingency situation, meaning you're not paying the hourly rate, but they take only the portion of the award that you actually had them do work for. So they're not going to take 40, 50, 60% of your reward. They're only going to take for the hours that they actually did the work. So significant savings right here for people that use our services for contingency cases. Now, who's covered under the plan? It's not just you, the member, but your spouse or significant other, any never married dependent children in the household up to the age of 26 who are at home, full-time in college, or deployed military, as long as their home of record is the member's address. Dependent children up to the age of 18 for whom the member is the legal guardian, and physically or mentally disabled children are covered for life in the household. So here's the big quiz, and if you pass this, you can move along to the next round. But would you rather hire one attorney at $250 an hour, or would you rather have access to a network of law firms all across North America for a low $24.95 month to month? Probably B. Now, I want to transition a little bit about identity theft. I don't think I have to teach you all about identity theft, but this is the #1 crime on the planet. It surpasses every other crime, bar none. As a matter of fact, it's been the #1 consumer complaint category for over the last 17 years in a row. And a lot of times when I bring up identity theft, people will tell me stories about how their credit card, their debit card, or their checking or savings were compromised, or somebody opened up a new line of credit in your name. Well, do you realize that credit fraud is only 17% of the full spectrum of identity theft? We've heard about the tax return fraud, the medical insurance fraud, driver's license fraud, criminal character fraud. There's over 25 million Americans estimated to be working in somebody else's social security number in the United States alone today. So we offer the #1 identity theft device that's available on the market because we monitor all areas of your life. More than likely, you already have some sort of a monitoring service through your bank or financial institution. But that's great for your credit, and that's important to have. But what about all the other areas of your life? So through our ID Shield app, we give our members access to be able to take a look at their recent credit score. You get prompt notification if they find out that somebody's trying to open up a new line of credit in your name. We also do social security monitoring with passport, driver's license, medical insurance information, email addresses, open loans, open bank cards, open shopping cards up to 10 at a time. We'll also, upon request, do a proactive database search of the dark web to see if anybody's using your online persona for nefarious reasons. We also do social media monitoring. So in the event that somebody creates a duplicate social media account with your name or likeness, you'll get promptly notified. Or if you get tagged in a photograph or a video that may be compromising to your character. Yes, it may be you, but that may not be a photo or a video that you want on the internet. I had been contacted by ID Shield just a few months ago, and somebody had created a Facebook page for a Smith Ward. And they were using my pictures from Facebook and sharing it with women around the world, trying to conjure up these relationships and let them know, say, hey, if you send me X amount of money, I'll come visit you, right? Now, of course it wasn't me. It sounded like a good idea, but it wasn't me. And so they said, we're gonna go ahead and take this down. And they had it removed from Facebook immediately. Now, I don't know about you all, but I have pages that I've created that I have difficulty getting off of Facebook. So I think that's an incredible additional service there as well. So for those people that are really concerned about credit monitoring, we actually will provide you for just an additional $5 with comprehensive credit monitoring through all 3 credit bureaus. And what separates us is our 100% identity restoration. So our licensed investigators will do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to restore your identity back to pre-theft status. I already talked about the $5 add-on. Who's covered under the plan? So if it's just you, you have no children, no spouse, no significant other, you get all the exact same services, but it's at a discounted rate. In the family plan, it covers the member and the member's spouse or significant other, and up to 10 children of the age of 17 or younger. So here's a flash at all those different plans. So you can see a full wall of security around you and your family for as little as $49.90 month to month. Now, we also have different business plans. As I mentioned, we have 4 different tiers of business plans based on the size of your company and how many employees and what your legal needs are. For our self-employed individuals, it's only an additional $9.95 in addition to your legal plan. To protect your business as well. And it also covers you for IRS tax audits in the event that you get named in an audit, which we know the self-employed are the highest population of people that get audited by the IRS. And so I think that's incredible benefit right there. And that also help you with all your other stuff. Now, nobody wants another bill coming into the household, and I get that. So we have actually access to a benefit we call member perks. And what it is the bulk buying power of our 1.7 million households, over 40,000 businesses nationwide that are covered under Legalshield, gives us the ability to negotiate significant discounts through top companies where you're already spending your money. So I get significant discounts through my cell phone provider, whenever I shop online, whenever I travel through hotels and flights, so on and so forth. Whenever we used to be able to go to the movie theater, I get 30% off my movie tickets. So we actually educate our members where they can save more money as a member of Legalshield than what they're spending on their legal and identity theft plan. So as there is a cost to being a member, I think there's a significantly greater cost to not being a member. And so to wrap up really quick, the market's ready for what we're offering. Now, still to date, even though we've been around since 1972, we're only at a 2% market penetration, meaning is that 98% of Americans, let alone Coloradans, don't even know or don't have our membership. But whenever we surveyed people, here's what we found out. 93% of respondents believe attorneys charge too much. Even if they had never used an attorney before, people inherently believe that attorneys cost too much. Now, 90% of Americans said they do not have any form of legal insurance or legal protection service. This was corroborated by the American Bar Association that actually said that 90% of Americans simply cannot afford to pick up the phone and talk to an attorney. Now, 9 out of 10 respondents said that if costs were more affordable, they would actually seek legal advice. But in the survey, when it asked if for as little as $25 a month, if that gave you affordable access to quality legal counsel, would you take advantage of it? 60% said absolutely. We would be interested in purchasing legal protection. So it's not a matter of whether or not people would actually use attorneys. It's just always the price point. And so that concludes my presentation. Really appreciate me being able to share that, and I'd love to open it up to any questions you may have.
Hey, thanks, Chris. So I'm going to be really brief because I know we don't have a ton of time for Q&A, but one of the reasons I met Chris a couple of years ago, and as he was explaining a few of these things, not even as in depth as he's gone over, I started my business when I was really young, and one of the biggest regrets was that we left ourselves open to a lot of liability, and thank God we didn't have a lot of legal things to worry about in the sense of being sued. We were really careful, but now that I know what I know now, someone could have gotten injured and our entire business would have been gone. I'm still grateful to this day that that didn't happen, but as I realized like what could have happened, now I see people starting their businesses and they're so excited about their dreams and that they don't realize that if they're not careful, they could lose it all simply by getting sued or taking the wrong steps or just simply not having an attorney to talk to when they're not sure what to do. So now I am extremely passionate about helping people get connected with people like Chris and services that are amazing like this. For $25 a month, I haven't found a better deal. I just haven't found anything that compares. So we're going to open it up to Q&A. We got a few people on here that I'm sure have drummed up a few questions that they want to ask you, and I'll open it up. If you have a question, feel free to put in the chat number 1, or you could raise your hand. Let's start with Derek. We're going to bring Derek on board and see if he has anything that he would like to ask.
Sure. That was a wonderful presentation, Chris. Thank you for your time today. My question for you is, if somebody, I actually know somebody whose identity has been compromised on the dark web. They've had a lot of bad things happen to them because this person is actively trying to destroy their life. Is going to Legalshield a viable option for them to counteract some of what's going on, since the FBI won't listen to them and won't do anything for them at this point?
Absolutely, because a lot of the reasons, and I'm glad you brought that up, that the FBI wouldn't help, because a lot of the large government agencies only deal with massive data breaches. So because identity theft is so prevalent, they don't have the time or the resources to deal with individuals' identity theft cases. And so there's even some cities, when you look on their website, that the police will fill out a report, and they say this on their website: we'll fill out a report, but we're not going to take any action if you've been a victim of identity theft. So our licensed investigators absolutely would be able to step in and help them out.
I'm going to follow up with you after this.
Yeah, absolutely.
for my friend.
All right, we got a few other people on here. We've got Keith and Phil. Keith, do you have any questions for Chris?
Yeah, I've got 2 questions. One, I was wondering how the data that is collected through the ID Shield is protected. That's a lot of data. And then the other question I had was, what are the limits of legal services? At what point do you exceed the $24 whatever rate you're paying per month, and you now need to pay more? Where is that line?
Well, for one, it's great, I think, to see you, Keith, and thank you for those questions. So with the identity theft, so not only do we have our encrypted walls to get in, but each individual account in there is individually encrypted. So even if we had a data breach, hackers would have to hack each individual's account separately. And so nobody can say that they will never be hacked. I can assure you that we've got a very difficult system to penetrate. And then as far as the legal services, I tell people, I've been a member since 2007, and I've never spent outside of my monthly membership fee. But the situations that you would exceed that is if your services that you need exceed the benefit, meaning that first, it's unlimited legal advice. So you can call in there 20 times a day and stay on the phone with the attorney until you understand what your legal rights are. If they will promise you 1 letter or 1 phone call per subject matter, like if somebody owed you money, they would write a collection letter on your behalf, but they're not going to keep writing collection letters. So if you want them to keep writing them, you're going to pay them for that. If you wanted to go on the offense and sue somebody for something in a civil trial, you would still have to retain the attorneys, but they take 25% off their standard hourly rate. And then the other issues that I've mentioned: divorce, bankruptcy, loan modification, foreclosure, DUI, those are other areas that would exceed the membership coverage, but you would still fall under a 25% discount.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
Awesome. We're going to move on to Phil. Phil, do you have any questions? Don't forget to unmute yourself. Very good.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot of questions because I have been a Legalshield member since I can remember. I remember when I first started my business, I just had, like we were talking about before, I was trying to write contracts on my own, pulling them off the internet, and what's scary for me is because my main target market is law firms. I'm always scared of just like them suing me for some random thing they don't like. And so I bought the family business, like everything. And I've used them for contracts. I've used them when somebody was trying to sue me. they took care of that with just a letter. So yeah, I'm a believer.
So you're more of a testimonial at this point.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I've had to use LegalShield twice with being a member, and I'll be honest that not much came from it simply because it was my fault. Like it was just my own stupidity, driving too fast, and just little things like that. But it felt really good to be able to just be able to call a lawyer and tell him my situation and see if there was something I could do. Just to be able to have that. I've been in other situations in the past where I didn't have that and did have to pay somebody, like $250 an hour just to get an opinion. So it saved me a ton of money for sure. Well, if
There's something to be said for peace of mind.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, $25 a month, that's what I'm on the lowest one just because it's just me. I don't have, family or anything, but it was worth it. It has been worth it. So unless anyone else has any other questions, I'll give it a second for anybody to think of anything. This is a great opportunity to ask Chris right here, right now. Otherwise, you guys can connect with him afterwards. If you
Last
haven't
question.
already, oh, go ahead, Keith.
What's the best way to get a hold of you and LegalShield, Chris Ward?
Well, thank you for that question. So, of course, you can find me at on Facebook at LegalShield or Chris Ward LegalShield Associate. You can Google search Chris Ward LegalShield. You can call me. My number is 720-449-1170, and so I can be reached there. And so, yeah, I appreciate it. And if anybody wants to connect, I'm also on LinkedIn. I love to just be a connector in the Denver metro area. So even if you don't need legal services, I love to network, and if somebody needs some other, if you're looking for a roofer or landscaper or whatever, a hairstylist, I love to connect people with the services and products that they're looking for.
Well, and remember, Chris, you are a Denver Great Minds member, and you are available to connect with through the denvergreatminds.com websites. And we encourage all of our members to connect with each other. You're at a lot of my events, so thank you. I appreciate that. And if you don't know what Denver Great Minds is already, if you're viewing this video later on, we have these expert calls quite often with people who are in our group who are just rocking it. And you can always go to www.denvergreatminds.com and check us out. And I hope you guys have a great rest of the day, rest of the afternoon.
Thank you all.
Take care.
Everybody have a wonderful day.
All right, see it.
Bye.